When you look back at the history of manufacturers in NASCAR, Dodge has had a very polarizing history. Their first stint from the early 1950s to the late 1970s had a multitude of historic events. In 1970, the Dodge Challenger became the first in NASCAR to break the 200-mile-per-hour speed mark. It eventually became so dominant that NASCAR, as a matter of fact, banned them for the entirety of 1971. When Bobby Isaac wasn't allowed to take his Challenger to Daytona or Talladega, he took it to Bonneville instead and set a new record there, clocking just over 216 miles per hour and setting 28 new records in total. But for the most part in their first stint, they were fairly competitive in NASCAR. They racked up 5 championships in total, the most being with Richard Petty scoring 3, 162 total wins all the way up until 1977. But towards the end of the 70s, they just straight up lost their edge, and once Petty left, the dominoes began to fall. They left the sport soon after, but fast forward just over 2 decades later, and we have a new era. This is revisiting Dodge's return to NASCAR. If you're in the need for premium, high-quality wireless earbuds, Raycon has you covered. Raycons are worn by celebrities such as Rich the Kid, and just like his top single Save That, you're definitely going to be able to save that money when you're making this purchase. The amazing features when purchasing Raycons are 6 hours of battery life, boosted bass, seamless Bluetooth pairing, and a comfortable noise-isolating fit. For me, my Raycons come in handy when I personally am trying to study and stay focused, or whenever I just randomly feel like popping my head. They also come in a variety of cases and colors that'll match your style perfectly. At the conclusion of this video, head on over to buyraycon.com/BFM and get 15% off of your purchase. Again, that's buyraycon.com/BFM and get 15% off of your purchase. A huge thanks to the fine folks over at Raycon and you for supporting this channel. The CEO of Daimler Chrysler at the time, Dieter Zetsche, was gonna be leading Dodge back into NASCAR. What many of you may not realize is that this is the same man that helped lead Mercedes back into Formula One. The announcement of Dodge's return came on October 14th, 1999. Wanting to come in competitive right away, they hit the ground running, trying to hire the best people available. Lucky for them, the best crew chief in NASCAR at the time wanted to transition from being a crew chief to a car owner.
The 13th victory of the 1998 NASCAR Winston Cup season for Jeff Gordon, as he ties Richard Petty for most wins in a single season, the King's mark set back in 1975. And from that moment on, cheers and congratulations from everyone to this 27-year-old man from originally from California, but he calls Pittsburgh, Indiana his home. Jeff Gordon, the champion of 1998.
All right, Ray, thanks for taking some time, man.
Anything for you, man.
Dude, so we got this. So we're here to talk about Dodge. And you guys set me up right in front of this beautiful Dodge. Is this the Intrepid?
This is an Intrepid, yeah. Imagine that. Intrepid. We raced a 4-door.
So tell us a little bit about this one specifically before we dive off into everything else.
Well, what's really cool about this particular car is when Dodge made all that about coming back to NASCAR Cup after 25 years and whatnot, Daytona 500, paint the town red. It was an incredible time, 2001. This is the car that sat on the pole for that return. Because if you remember, 2001, Dodge took the whole front row. You know, this car was pole, and then Stacy Compton in the Melling car was outside pole. But this is the number 9 Bill Elliott drove for me and sat on the pole that day for the Daytona 500. And it's really still, you know, I've had it in my possession since. So it's, you know, we've had to repair it a couple of times. But it's still mostly the original car, sheet metal, motor, things like that.
That's awesome. So how do you go from at Hendrick, you know, crew chief for Jeff Gordon, you guys are pretty much dominating this sport at this time, and then you're like, I'm going to try ownership. And then you go over and you do that. How do you get there?
Well, it wasn't quite that easy, but I mean, I don't know how long the show is, but you got to condense it, right? You know, Jeff and I and Rick Hendrick had incredible amount of success, but, you know, we'd been together 7 years and we'd won everything you could win in NASCAR racing at that point. Some of it 2 and 3, 4 times, right? So Dodge started to court both Jeff and I when about their return a year and a half ahead of when it happened.
Right.
And we kept telling them, no, we're busy. No, we're busy. No, we're busy. You know. In '98, we had a heck of a season. I mean, we had a 13-win season, championship. We did everything again. And I started to think, man, you know, I'm getting kind of older, and you know, I'd love to be able to do something, you know. And we talked and talked and talked about it. And finally, you know, Dodge came to me and said, what's it going to take? And you know, I thought, well, I'm going to either get this done or get rid of them. And I made a list of stuff, and they said, okay, you know. So we went and did it. And you know, making that decision to leave Hendrick and leave Jeff was the hardest thing I had to do in my life. I was in the best team in motorsports, but just that challenge of, man, could I do it without all of Rick's resources and Jeff's talent?
And who was your first driver? Was it Casey Atwood? Was he the first driver of the team?
No, there was another guy out of Dawsonville, Georgia, another kid. And what
was that guy's name?
Bill Elliott. And
Bill.
Bill was a big part of me doing that deal, because, you know, before everything was locked up and signed, I went and knocked on his truck door. We were up at Loudon, and I said, hey, man, I need to see you. And he's sitting there, and I said, hey, look, I'm going to take the Dodge deal for next year. I want you to come drive for me. I know you don't have a deal. And he didn't answer me. He's like, oh. So the next day he calls me. He's like, hey, you know, I was like, man, you scared me. You didn't answer me. He goes, I was so shocked I didn't know what to say. But Bill is a good friend, and Bill Elliott really made a huge difference and made big impact on how the whole Dodge program developed because of his ability for testing and development.
So you were the flagship team. So what all entailed with that? Like, kind of take us through kind of some of the struggles or the challenges of being that.
Well, you know, there's two challenges when you're doing something, right?
Yeah.
Time and money. So the one thing Dodge handled was the money. You know, there wasn't a money problem. They put the resources behind it, but we were still fighting the time thing. So we had to be efficient, and we had to find ways that we could prove stuff out that we knew that we were confident in giving it to the other race teams, because some of the guys were busy. Some were still racing other brands of cars that were getting ready to switch. So we had to get that stuff done and get it on to them at time. And when when all of a sudden you need hundreds of sets of cylinder heads and hundreds of sets of body panels and things like that. So I feel like what we did in a short period of time in partnership with Dodge was still pretty impressive when you look back at it, because we not only made it at time, we put all 10 Dodges in the race. All 10 Dodges made the race. Nobody went home.
So it was you, Chip Ganassi, Bill Davis was a part of that. Who else?
Mark Melling.
Mark Melling was a part of that.
There were 10 cars total, and Petty.
Richard Petty, yeah. So when you guys made that merger, right, and it was still, what was that like? Kind of, you know, now we're reaching all the way back to the days of Dodge. Now you're the new kid on the block. Richard Petty is the king, and we kind of put the two things together. What was that like? It
was an honor for me, you know, because we actually did the motors for Petty for a while. But you know, Kyle Petty was a big part of that. Kyle was kind of heading up Petty Enterprises at that time, and again, unfortunately, with Adam's passing, it took a lot of wind out of everybody's sails for a while. But I got to work with Kyle on the development of the car, and we worked closely with Petty, so it was really cool. The program worked, and it worked efficiently for the first 2, 3, 4 years, whatever, because the people at Dodge were really behind it. They were the same people. There was consistency. There was a lot of communication between my team, between Chip Ganassi's team, Richard Petty's team, Mark Melling's team. You know, Ernie Elliott was working with my guys, and whatnot. And I think Bill Davis had left a little bit earlier and went over to the Toyota side. Yeah. But ultimately, we worked really good together and hard together while we were the underdogs, and all of a sudden, hey, Sterling Marlin almost won the championship. I think only the second or third year Dodge was there. Had he not got hurt, things could have been much different. So really felt good about the way everybody worked together. And it was like when one Dodge won, it felt like we all won.
And whether it was a Ray Evernham car or a Chip Ganassi car going to Victory Lane, you felt good about it on Monday morning.
Yeah, and I think the Dodge teams did. Now, I can't say that, man, that I certainly would have rather one of my cars went to Victory Lane rather than one of Chip's or But the point is, we all could feel good about it because we knew that we were helping one another.
The results of Dodge's original return to NASCAR had mixed results. Petty Enterprises had 3 cars in total, the most notable being what was meant to be Adam Petty's 2001 entry. Kyle Petty was pretty adamant, saying that this was still Adam's team, he was just running for him. Kyle Petty's 2001 season didn't have a whole lot of bright spots performance-wise. He was running up front for a little bit at Bristol before engine problems did him in, and he DNQ'd for 12 races in total. The best Petty Enterprises car to come out of 2001 was from the late John Andretti driving the famous 43. In that same spring race at Bristol that Kyle Petty DNF'd in, he actually almost won and was leading late in the going, but ultimately lost to Elliott Sadler. He finished runner-up that day and in total scored 1 top 5 along with 2 top 10s. Andretti was clearly the best at Petty Enterprises, but he finished 31st in the standings. And finally, the 44 of Buckshot Jones made a total of 30 starts in 2001, accumulating 10 DNFs and also DNQing for 4 races. They even brought back good old Wally out of retirement but failed to qualify. Mellings Racing had a very interesting entry to me. Stacey Compton drove the 92 Kodiak Dodge for all of 2001. He qualified for every single race, and this included some pretty notable starts. That being starting on the front row with Bill Elliott in the 2001 Daytona 500, and ended up scoring his only top 10 in that same race as well. He also went on to sweep that season's poles at Talladega Superspeedway in both the spring and fall events. And to make matters even weirder, the crew chief of this team for the entirety of that season was future Cup Series champion Chad Knaus. While they had amazing speed on the superspeedways, their performances everywhere else were surely lacking behind. 1 top 10, 2 DNQs, 7 DNFs, and just like Petty Enterprises, they also finished below the top 30 in standings. The late Jason Leffler drove the second Chip Ganassi entry that season. Before it was the 41 Target Dodge, the season prior, it was the Singular Wireless 01. His only top 10 of 2001 came at Homestead, 34 races into the season. His most notable highlight came from the inaugural Kansas Speedway weekend, scoring the first ever pole there in Cup Series history. On the flip side, he also DNQ'd in 5 races. This makes Jason Leffler the 5th Dodge so far to finish below the top 30 in points. Those 5 teams had their moments, but struggled for the most part. These next 5 were Dodge's strongest from 2001. The most underrated was without a doubt Dave Blaney in the second Bill Davis entry. He looked well on his way to scoring Dodge's first victory in just their 4th race and his very own first career Cup Series victory as well. He led 70 laps in total at Atlanta that day, the most he would lead all season. Unfortunately, bad strategy and in the end a loose tire would do him in, robbing him of at least finishing inside the top 10. But for the most part all season, the speed was there. Qualified for every single race, scored 6 top 10s, and finally becomes the first Dodge on our list to finish above the top 30 in points with a 22nd place points finish. But unfortunately, this season will always be remembered as what could have been for Dave Blaney at Atlanta. Casey Atwood was without a doubt viewed as the future of Evernham Motorsports. Really the future of Dodge's program as a whole in NASCAR. Being touted as the next Jeff Gordon can either be viewed as a blessing or a curse, and with his former crew chief now as your car owner, you were expected to perform. The thing is, Casey Atwood was rushed way too quickly. By the time we reach halfway through the season, he's sitting a dismal 34th in the standings, and really for the most part didn't find any relative speed until the end of 2001. The final 10 races saw him score 2 of his 3 top 10s, as well as competing for a win at Homestead and finishing 3rd. This would be his first and only top 5 in the NASCAR Cup Series. And let's not forget his first and only career Cup Series pole coming at Phoenix. In total, 1 top 5, 3 top 10s, 1 DNQ, and a 26th place points finish. Now we can hop straight into Dodge's Big Three, and the way we're going to do that is by order of their wins. Their first unofficial win came in the first race of the twin duels that season at Daytona. Sterling Marlin and the 40 Silver Bullet entry out of Chip Ganassi Racing were on a tear that season. Not only was he on a career resurgence, but he finally brought Dodge that coveted first win at Michigan of all places. Dodge and Sterling Marlin had returned to NASCAR victory lane. A couple of races later in the Southern 500, Ward Burton would bring it home for Dodge as well. It was a battle for most of the season between him and Bill Elliott to see who would be the second best Dodge entry. The 22 put up a solid fight in 2001, scoring 6 top 5s, 10 top 10s, a win in the Southern 500, but inconsistency is what did them in with 9 total DNFs, and in the end, they would wound up finishing 14th in the standings, becoming the second best Dodge team of 2001. Sterling Marlin and the Silver Bullet came in clutch once again later in the fall, winning that season's fall race at Charlotte Motor Speedway. The Silver Bullet was the only Dodge in NASCAR to score multiple wins, and Sterling Marlin and Chip Ganassi Racing finished 3rd in the standings, a podium in Dodge's inaugural season back. 2 wins, 12 top 5s, and 20 top 10s. But no win from any Dodge driver came to the levels of popularity such as Bill Elliott's at Homestead. Starting off the first quarter of 2001 in the top 10, he fell back to the mid-teens but was still relatively consistent. The second pole of the season would come at Homestead, and so was his first win in 7 seasons. The best Evernham car of 2001 scored 1 win, 5 top 5s, 9 top 10s, and wound up finishing 15th in the standings.
The sport has changed so much that like the only time we see people really work together is maybe like super speedways. Other than that, like everyone's kind of working on their own stuff, and which we all get, right? But for you guys to have that experience together and bring that brand in and elevate it, that must have been just really special.
Yeah, we knew, again, the Dodge deal was just a little bit ahead of its time. Because if you look at what Chevrolet's done now with their teams and Toyota's done with their teams, they're making everybody, they're saying, you got to get together. Yeah. You've got to have all of your brain trust together. You got to have, and Dodge pushed us to do that 20 years ago. So, they were just a little bit ahead of their time, but a lot of the things that you see today, the early Dodge philosophy was to do that. And I go all the way back to Dieter Zetsche, and obviously you look at the incredible success he's had at Mercedes Formula One. That brain trust, that philosophy that he laid out, had we all been able to keep going down that path, I think they could have easily been dominating NASCAR the way that they've dominated Formula One.
Dodge's second stint in NASCAR took place from 2001 to 2012, seeing them score a total of 55 victories, which ultimately culminated in a championship from Brad Keselowski and Roger Penske in 2012. They announced plans for their Gen 6 car early that season, but ultimately they decided to leave. With the launch of the new Gen 7 car for 2022 and beyond, Evernham is convinced that Dodge's return could be possible.
I think NASCAR's done a fantastic job with the Gen 7 car, and I don't know about the nuts and bolts of the car, right? But the philosophy of the car and the way that it's going to save money. Mm-hmm. So, and the biggest thing, it really makes it so that a new manufacturer can come into the sport now without having to have spent hundreds of millions of dollars on research and development, and they won't have to spend hundreds of millions on research and development going forward. It's like IndyCar racing, and I think that this same type of package that Jay Fry and those guys have done has really helped IndyCar racing in the last 4 or 5 years start to grow. And when I look at what NASCAR's done with this new Gen 7 car, I think it's going to bring new owners into the sport. I think it's going to bring new manufacturers into the sport, or maybe some old manufacturers back that can be competitive. It's going to allow somebody to be competitive right off the bat without having to spend a gazillion dollars. I mean, to me, it's a little bit like the SRX, if you will. It's going to be about the people again.
Which that car kind of looks like a die.
that's really kind of a non-denominational car.
Yeah, it's a non-denominational car.
But I know that roof looks like a Challenger.
Many NASCAR fans, including myself, miss Dodge in the sport so much. Just from the history of their initial stint in NASCAR all the way to their return, they have such a rich and colorful history. Let me know down in the comments below what your favorite Dodge moment in NASCAR was. I certainly have a few. And a huge thanks to Dylan Smith, Mamba Media, and Ray Evernham for making this interview happen. I'm gonna let those two finish this off, but once again, that'll do it for another video. Thank you guys so much for watching. This is Black Flags Matter. Catch you next time.
I gotta get like one solid Bill Elliott story. Like I need that for me.
I'm gonna tell you, Bill Elliott is an incredible person. He is an unbelievable race driver. He is a great friend, salt of the earth. But he has the driest sense of humor you could imagine. I'm used to being on the radio with Jeff Gordon, and Jeff would sometimes get a little bit, and he'd be, Jeff and I used to go back and forth, and, I love Jeff too. But Bill, we'd be at like Talladega or Daytona, and he'd be in the super speedway 3 wide, and he would just come on the radio and start singing "Clowns to the left of me, jokers to the right. Here I am stuck in the middle." I'd be like, "Pay attention, man!" He was just so cool. He'd be like, "Yeah, look at this, clowns to the left of me, jokers to the right." That's just Bill. Bill could have easily been a successful fighter pilot if he was not a race car. He's just cool under fire.
Ray, thanks, bro.
Thank you, man. That could be our special handshake now.
Yeah, we're gonna do 2 hands. Yeah, no, appreciate you though.
No, you appreciate you enough. Let me come run your late model.
Hey man, come on now.
That days are over for me.
One more go, maybe.
I'll work on it.
All right, cool. Sounds good.